What's up, guys? Welcome to Newswave Week in Review. So we're going to go back and take a look at all the different news waves throughout the week, get caught up, and see what you guys had to say down in the comments section. I really like doing this. I like to go through and see, well, what you guys had to say about any of the topics we talked about. It's also a good way to get caught up on any of the news waves you may have missed. So let's get started. On Monday, we talked about early NPD reports that the Nintendo Switch came in last place behind the PS4 and the Xbox One. This, of course, comes after the massively discounted sales that the Microsoft and Sony were running for either system, with both being under $200 on Black Friday. Parker Lark says, a little bit surprised about Switch coming in third, considering it was the best-selling item for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, etc. Still great that they all sold well, but surprised nevertheless. So the report that you're referring to, many were referring to, I kind of skipped over it because I had a feeling it was going to paint a false narrative for what was going to happen with the MPDs, mostly because it was Adobe Insights, and they mostly track like online retailers. I think they track like 4,500 online retailers, and from what I was seeing, everybody was going to the stores like GameStop and Best Buy and everything, and they were just buying up PS4s in droves. There were so many PS4s, so many Xbox Ones, the base model, not as many X's, but a lot of the 190 model, a lot of the $200 PS4 model with a $50 gift card at GameStop in store. Yeah, it was getting a little out of control there, and I had a feeling that despite, well, the reports from Adobe Insights, we were going to see a different narrative when it came out. Also, keep in mind, Cyber Monday was not included with MPDs because it ended a few days before then. I think it ended on the 25th of November, so just after Black Friday is when these MPD results came out and what that range was. So it's not as surprising to me. It's hard to compete with a $200 PS4, a 190 Xbox One, especially since the Xbox One is also a 4K Blu-ray player. It's hard to compete with that when Nintendo really didn't drop their prices at all, but it sounds like everyone sold well anyway, so it seemed like everyone kind of won. On Tuesday, we went over Square Enix discussing their plans for the Switch, bringing more games over from their back catalog and even remastering these games rather than just drop them directly on the Switch. We also went over announcements from PSX. Edward the Great says, Kingdom Hearts on Switch, please. Now, I knew when I was editing that news wave together, and I knew it was going to go up talking about Square Enix and different games to their back catalog, I knew people in the comments were going to talk about Kingdom Hearts, specifically 1 and 2, for example, at some point in time going to the Switch, and it makes sense. However, I have a feeling, I haven't really seen anything about it, but Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 must in some way be contractually obligated to just be on PlayStation hardware. It's been on the PS2, it's been on the PS3, and it's been on the PS4, but it's never been on the 360 and has never been on the Xbox One. I understand more so why it wouldn't be on something like the Xbox One, for example, but the 360 was at least popular while the PS3 was still kind of lagging behind. It seemed like that would be an easy thing to do, just drop it on the 360. So I have a feeling it would make sense to put those on the Switch. I just don't know what's going on in the background, but trust me, I would love to see the Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2 remix show up on the Switch. I think that would sell tremendously. I know I would buy it even though I have it on the PS4 and I have it on the PS3. I would buy it to get on the Switch just because, hey, it's portable and it looked like it'd be kind of cool to play there. Wednesday, Nintendo announced that 10 million Switch systems had been sold through to consumers. This marks a very fast arrival to that milestone for any system in its first year of sales, matching the PS4's first year pace and blowing past the Xbox One's first year. The big question right now is, how can Nintendo continue this momentum into 2018? Igon Phase says, funny that he mentioned the GameCube in the context he did. I'm exactly that kind of Switch owner. The only console I owned in between the GameCube and the Switch was an old Xbox I only played 3 times. I played with my GameCube and PC all the way up to the Switch release. If it weren't for the Switch, I would likely still have my modded GameCube. So here's hoping Nintendo at least matches Sony so third parties can bandwagon for an even better Nintendo year. Now, I mentioned that specifically in that news wave about how I think Nintendo is pulling people back that really have been absent from Nintendo since the GameCube era, because there were a lot of people. I remember when the Wii came out. I got it day one. I waited outside Walmart, did all that whole thing because I wanted to get Zelda, but I did that whole thing. I waited outside and I started to realize a lot of the people that had a GameCube just weren't interested in the Wii. They weren't interested in the motion aspect, the motion controls, and of course, after the Wii was out for a little while, it started to really die off as kind of a gimmicky system. I know there were some good games on there, but for the most part, it was people buying it for one game, and that was Wii Sports, and it came with it. You know, grandparents were buying it, And I just don't think it really pulled the same gamers in that were at the GameCube, but at that point, they were off to either PC, Sony, or Microsoft systems because those were closer to what the GameCube was in terms of a hardcore gaming presence. I understand that. But then I see the Switch, and I realize it's pulling from that same crowd, the crowd who wants to be able to play hardcore games again, you know, actual games rather than focus on things like a Wii Sports or like the gimmicky nature. I think that's why 1-2 Switch, while I'm sure it's a fun game for a lot of people, got kind of that bad rap as being a boring, gimmicky game, and it kind of is, but I understand why people might buy it if they could play it with their family, but that's not really what the Switch is about. It seems more so about, especially with the first-year lineup that we've seen, the actual Nintendo hardcore gaming crowd, I think they're coming back, and I think that's going to spell a much larger sales history going forward for the Switch. I mean, we've already seen it, 10 million Switch units this fast. That's pretty ridiculous. Thursday, Rocket League had a physical copy announced for January on the Switch, costing $10 more than other versions. Metal Gear Survive had a new single-player trailer released and even announced an open beta for fans. Striker CV50 says, Metal Gear Survive might be an okay game, but nobody asked for it. Metal Gear Solid has always been about the Snake family and how awesome you feel sneaking around. You guys think Konami will take a stab at Metal Gear Solid 6 without Kojima? That's something I am definitely wondering. Will they be able to tackle Metal Gear Solid 6 without Kojima? And I don't think they're going to be able to. I don't think it's going to feel the same. Kojima, as we've seen with Death Stranding, has a lot of, we'll just say, creative abilities, doing stuff that no one else would think to do, trying to put stuff together in terms of political sense and fiction like he did with Metal Gear Solid was, I think, bar none. I don't think you see anybody else do that. It's very difficult to anyway, so I don't know how they would tackle a Metal Gear Solid 6 at this point. Metal Gear Solid 5, yeah, a lot of people pointed out, felt super rushed at the end, and then we hear all about how Kojima and Konami had this big falling out, and Konami was being just crazy towards him and everything. I just don't see how they can go from start to finish without Kojima and build a Metal Gear Solid game like that. I think that's the big reason why a lot of people see Metal Gear Survive and they go, it's not really Metal Gear. It feels like a very generic style game. While it might be a good game, like in terms of mechanics and actually playing it, it's not, at least from my vantage point, it's not a Metal Gear Solid game, Metal Gear game in general. Finally, on Friday, we talked about a listing for Burnout Paradise that could point towards a remaster for all current consoles, including the Switch. We also went over a recent article in Famitsu with the Monster Hunter World team talking about cosmetic microtransactions. Psycho Mantis says, microtransaction on exclusive cosmetics I'm totally fine with. It's something that you just put on a weapon or armor, but if it's like the skin also adds so-and-so damage, that's where it's a problem. Now, I made that point in that news wave on Friday, but a lot of people down in the comments pointed out some pretty interesting points of view here. So, we're to this point now where we aren't as against, just because we've been trained to this point, we're not as against microtransactions as we were, years ago. We would see them and be like, oh, microtransactions, this is terrible. But now we're just happy that it doesn't influence the game. It's something that has happened now with Battlefront 2, where we see something that's so bad, right? So obvious with what they're trying to do, which is make us pay more money so we can have gameplay advantages, that we don't mind the little stuff, right? We don't mind the cosmetic stuff. I think that's, like I said, a big reason why Call of Duty got away with what they did, where it has loot boxes like crazy in it, but because Battlefront 2 did it so much worse, people just didn't care. Like, people don't mind. So I think we're to that point now as well. I will say I have never really had a problem with cosmetics, because if people want to buy in and change colors and everything on their character, skins if you will, that's fine. People also pointed out that Monster Hunter is generally about going out, hunting monsters, and then getting new armor and essentially new cosmetics. So it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of skate that line. They seem to want to add DLC, but also have it funded by the fans by using microtransactions. So it's gonna be tough. I want to see this tightrope they're gonna try to walk, because I think they may see some fan backlash if it's very intrusive. But if it's kind of like Overwatch doesn't seem to get a big deal for theirs, so maybe it'll fall into that kind of category where people don't really care as much, and they just want to play the game without having to worry about, I guess, people showing up with these awesome cosmetics to give them these abilities. Make it skins or whatever that have no influence on gameplay, and I think people will get over it pretty quick. That's going to do it for Newswave Week in Review today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Really helps in the search results and all that algorithm stuff. But I really appreciate you guys coming by on a Saturday, taking the time to come by and watch and see what we had from you guys this past week. Make sure you guys stop in later on tonight. Definitely, we're going to do Spawncast, have some fun. That's 9 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll put up a tweet, so make sure you're following me on Twitter, where you can set a reminder. You can come by and watch us and we'll have some fun. We'll talk about all the stuff that's been happening because there's been a lot of releases this past week. Surprisingly, there's been a lot of releases we're going to talk about. So thanks, guys, and I'll see you later on tonight.